Welcome to another episode of Carolina Commercial Real Estate Connection. Today we have Harvey Yergin from Ohio with us. Well, I think he's from Germany, but we're going to call it Ohio. That's where he's living right now. Harvey, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, my blood is from Germany. Yeah, I'm from Ohio. I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So, what does Yergin mean in English? Does it have any further meaning, or we know about it?
Yeah, yeah. When I looked it up, I think it's a one-for-one translation to the word farmer.
I love that. Harvey the farmer. Harvey the farmer Yergin. That's what we're going to go with from now on.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Harvey's coming to us to kind of go over EOS. Harvey is an EOS implementer. And Harvey, can you explain for those who don't know, one, what EOS is, and two, what an implementer is in EOS?
Yep. So I spend all day, every day helping business owners get what they want from their business, help them live their ideal lives, of which their business is just a part of. And to do that, I help them implement EOS, which is a complete set of simple tools, timeless principles, disciplines, and practices. And we get them vision, traction, and healthy. So if you're a business owner out there, or you think you might be at some point, vision is figuring out where you're going long term and making sure everybody else who's on your team is going in the same direction. Traction is getting real accountability and discipline in your business so that everybody everywhere is operating towards that vision and plan. And then healthy is getting the entire team to be open, honest, cohesive, fun loving, enjoying being around each other as they work and play towards that common vision. Oftentimes, when we run into teams, that's not the way they interact with each other. I've been a part of teams that don't interact that way. So that's the whole, at a high level, that is the entire purpose. So EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. An operating system for your business is just a way that you do your business. There's several operating systems out there. You can even create your own. I just happen to like EOS the best. And yeah, that's what I get to do. And I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, EOS is a very simple but complicated thing. So it's simple in the layout of it. Obviously, it's complicated in the complete execution of this in order to make it work, but it's a very simple system. What got you,
Yeah.
or what kind of caught your eye about EOS? How did you get involved in EOS and becoming an EOS implementer?
Yeah. My story starts. So I was a Division I athlete, and this is where I just really fell in love with this idea of team. Shortly after I was an athlete, I was fortunate enough to work for the United States Army as a civilian. I led teams of soldiers and former soldiers, and as you'd imagine in that environment, team is also very important. I loved that job. I eventually decided to pursue some of my own passions, namely more time with my family and to build businesses that I was interested in. So I pursued real estate. I went to Bigger Pockets University, like a lot of people back in 2015. Decided, this sounds like a pretty good plan. Let me quit my very secure, cushy job as a government employee and go build a business. Well, so I started to do that slowly. Over time, decided that I wanted to do it on a bigger scale. So I was, flipping, wholesaling, buying to hold, etc. And when I wanted to grow it, I had to build a team. I just couldn't do everything myself. And that's when I realized, oh shit, I'm not very good at this. It's one thing to be handed a team like a sports team or a team of soldiers and former soldiers and improve them and drive them towards a common purpose. It's another thing to build a team from scratch. And like I said, I wasn't getting very far very fast. So that led me to do some research, look for some help, which led me to the book Traction by Gino Wickman, which is quote unquote the Bible for everything EOS. And it resonated. I mean, if you've been a struggling business owner or a business owner who just feels like things are out of control, and then you read Traction or Rocket Fuel for that matter, you're like, whoa, this is what I need. So I started implementing some of those tools. Eventually sold that business. Helped another buddy here locally who had a commercial real estate company implement some of the same tools. And then when I when I was done being his integrator and implementing those tools, I decided that I really like helping other business owners, coaching and teaching. I already knew EOS, at least I thought I did, but I was familiar with EOS because of using it in my business and another person's business. So just I went down that path and became a certified and professional EOS implementer, and have been doing that ever since.
That's fantastic. So tell me a little bit about you saying that you started EOS with your business and
Hmm.
then sold your business and then helped a friend that was in a commercial real estate business. Could you kind of walk us through how did you get involved? So you read traction and put it in place. How long did you uh, enact EOS? And then how long did you help your friend with EOS?
The the journey for me in my business pre-EOS to sale, let's say it was about 3 years.
Okay.
Um, and then when I was wrapping up that business, I a good buddy of mine locally, who's also in GoBundance, which is the organization we're a part of, he was looking for an integrator, which is really a COO sort, somebody to be at the helm of a business, generate process development. A lot of times when it's the first hire in that organization, you're just taking this giant mess uh, and creating some organization out of it. So he asked me to be his integrator. I was in a transition time at that point, and I said yes. And I worked with him for a little less than a year, about 8 or 9 months or so. It turns out that while I was the visionary and integrator for my own company, going back into an organization, working for somebody and being an integrator, um, I underestimated that commitment. That's to be an integrator, to be a COO. That's a lot. That's a big commitment. And it's one thing to do it for your own company, where you're invested, super invested in the success of the company. It's another thing to be on your own, like I was for 6 or 7 years, then come back and work for somebody and be an
Mhm.
integrator, which is that's a big commitment. Most of the time, the integrator is accountable for the P&L, all profit and loss. That's one of the things they're accountable for. And it just, I stayed 9 months. It was a lot of work. We had some fun. I learned a crap ton. I think he learned a crap ton. So that was his first integrator. We implemented some tools. We got some organization in places that there wasn't much organization, and then we moved on. We're still friends.
Moved on and you're still friends. Well, that's fantastic. So
Yeah,
it sounds
yeah.
like once you went through that, I mean, that's a big undertaking, like you say. And so, did how did that feel to you? You're saying when you weren't owner, so was it that you felt like you were doing almost more than the owner and not reaping any benefits? Is that kind of how you are? Is that kind of what you're insinuating with that you're putting in so much work and it's completely different because you weren't the owner?
Well, no, I would not say I was doing more work than the owner. It's just very different. I'd say the biggest friction point for me was that I had, for the last 6 or 7 years, got very used to just being in total charge of my time, doing more or less whatever I wanted. I was working hard, but I was able to, in the middle of the day, go do things like volunteer at my kid's school or, whatever it was that I wanted to do. When you're working as a W-2 in somebody else's company,
Mhm.
and that's not really how you can orchestrate your day. So that was a big change of pace for me. And then as it turns out, and so if you're familiar with the term visionary integrator and you think you might be one or both, read the book Rocket Fuel. Inside of Rocket Fuel is a crystallizer assessment, which is a fancy term for a test that tells you how suited you are to be either a visionary or an integrator or both. And I hadn't taken that test until much later. Turns out I'm actually not an integrator.
Ah,
So I'm not hardwired for those sort of responsibilities and accountabilities and those roles. And so it's energy sucking for me. And so
yes,
I
it's
was I
energy
was in that
sucking for
role as
me
a
too.
business owner, and I found that heavy as a business owner too, but it's different when it's your own baby and it's your business. You just got to do what you got to do, right? Which isn't the best way to run a business, but that's where I was. And when it's somebody else's business and it's sucking energy from me and I can't control my own schedule, that's a lot.
That is a lot to handle, that's for sure. So, for those who are not that familiar yet with EOS and the visionary and the integrator, so the visionary is in essence like the CEO that comes up with all the ideas and has the plan, the future, the goal orientation of everything, and kind of, you know, picks all the things that they want to do, but doesn't have maybe what the integrator has, which is a lot of follow through, finishing, detail orientation, can put things into action, and kind of good at, holding people accountable, you know, and stuff like that. Those are kind of the major differences. So it's like a CEO, COO, and the EOS, the idea of EOS is that every company, their strength, and what Rocket Fuel is about is the strength is in the two, that you really need a visionary and an integrator for every company to be successful. So any successful company that you look at, historically speaking, like McDonald's, you always hear about the visionary, but there's always an integrator on the backside of that business. They don't get a lot of the credit, but the majority of all successful businesses out there have that duo. And if they don't, there's a rarity of someone that can kind of do both. But really, that's the majority of companies. You have to have the balance of those two to be successful. So any individual that's, an entrepreneur and getting going, they're in initial phases. If they're by themselves, they're having to carry both of those loads, and they inhibit their long-term growth by not, you know, counterbalancing with getting that other piece.
Yeah. Yep. Well said. That's exactly what it is. And I'd say if you're a business owner right now and you feel overwhelmed and you feel like your creative genius or what you're supposed to be doing and what you like to do is creative ideas, big relationships, culture, staying at a 30,000-foot view, and you're stuck in the weeds of driving accountability and filling positions. And maybe there's also chaos underneath of you where you got a bunch of people who are not actually the people that you want on your team. And you're finding it difficult to have tough conversations and hold people accountable and get people to do the things that they said they would do. It's likely that you're a visionary, which the world needs, and that you need an integrator at some point, which the world also needs. And like you said, that dynamic duo can create rocket fuel when those seats and those roles are crystal clear and separate. When you know who's accountable for integrating and who's accountable for vision, then you can create rocket fuel.
Yeah, and what Harvey in essence does then is finds businesses that either don't have one of those pieces, and helps then, them to identify what that person would be responsible for doing, so they can clearly understand what they're looking for, or find a company that has those both pieces, helps them clarify their seats, who's accountable for what, and how they can put those systems in place to implement EOS within their company, and get the company from where they are now to a much higher level, more efficient, in order to grow and scale your company in an effective manner, and who you're looking to hire, what positions you need, and what those people are accountable for, and can really simplify this process that, in other words, would take years. He can shorten that time frame for a new or active business owner that's kind of struggling by years, with his experience. That's what someone like Harvey can do for a business. So I think it's critical for people to understand that this is out there. And yes, it's, you can go read the book, but putting it into effect is a lot more difficult and takes a lot of time and effort. And there's a lot of tools that are associated with the EOS that, someone with his experience can go through and kind of get you hitting the ground running and understanding what to do. So initially, Harvey, when you meet a client, what's the first thing that you do with that client to kind of show them if they've just called you and want to understand EOS and get to know you a little bit?
Yeah. So that first call is just, just a friendly get to know you call where I'm asking them questions about their business, about their team, what their current struggles are, what they want from the business that they're not currently getting, and why they think that maybe they're not getting it and how long it's been going on. What kind of things have they tried? Because EOS is not for everybody, and I'm not for everybody. So there's no sense in us continuing any sort of conversation if we feel like we're not a match for each other. And likewise, they're asking me questions about kind of businesses I've worked with or how long I've been doing this or what EOS is, etc. And then if it makes sense and they are still interested and it sounds like they're growth oriented, growth minded, that they're frustrated and they're wanting something from their business that they're not getting. The next step is I give them for free, I give them 90 minutes. And in that 90 minutes, the business owner brings their leadership team, and together we talk about what EOS is. I ask them a few questions about where they've been, where they are now, and where they're going. And then we get into the tools. And I really just open the fire hose and share all of the tools and disciplines in the EOS system, and then the process of what EOS implementation looks like. And people who sit in on that 90 minutes, that free 90 minutes that I give them, they learn things. They take tools away that they can use whether or not we move forward together. And they get a sense of if there's fit, which is the whole objective of that first free 90 minutes. Is there fit? And fit means, are you right for EOS and is EOS right for you? Because again, this isn't going to work unless you're committed, unless you are willing to put in the work and you're growth oriented and growth minded. If you think you have all the answers and you have it all figured out, EOS isn't for you. Also, EOS is specifically designed for a certain size of business, so 10 plus employees. Doesn't mean it won't work for smaller or business or bigger businesses because it's 10 to 250 employees, but it's specifically designed for companies of that size. So by the end of that free 90 minutes, we all have a better idea of if there's fit there or not.
Yeah, and I do hear sometimes, people that are even smaller companies are looking at EOS. It's just when EOS, you're doing what's called an accountability chart and kind of laying out, well, who's going to be responsible for what. And if you have a team of two, right? I mean, there's not much to break down on who can be responsible for what. If there's only two of you, you're basically splitting everything that there is in half. Now you might be able to create seats for everything, but it's kind of a little
Yeah.
far out. One thing that you touched on that I did want to, and you just kind of went over that I find, initially when I've looked at EOS and bringing people, I'm like, well, what industries have you worked with? What industry were you in and do you have experience with? So could you kind of explain to me, do you get that a lot? And
Yeah.
how do you overcome that question? So if I'm coming from a manufacturing company and you haven't worked with any other manufacturing companies, how can you relate or understand that company and how do you overcome that?
Yeah. I mean, I do. Yeah, I do get that a lot. And my first question is, well, why is that important to you? What is it that you foresee in this process that would be a challenge or an obstacle that is unique to your industry? I try to get an understanding of where that question is coming from because everybody that we talk to, of course, they're human and humans build stories and they build up expectation of how this thing is going to look. And until you're in it, you really don't know what it looks like. It's just like anything else. And they're asking that question from what they think is an understanding of the way the process is going to look. And it's very rarely anything close to that. eventually we get to the point where it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It doesn't matter what industry your implementer is in. In fact, if you pull 100 good implementers, most of them will say, I would prefer not to work with a team in an industry that I'm super familiar with. Because an implementer's job is to be in that room with the leadership team and to be objective and facilitate and to extract the wisdom that's in the heads of the team that's in the room. And as you might imagine, if you're very familiar with the industry, you start to think of and maybe are tempted to offer strategy advice or advice on what to do next. Provide answers in the room, which is not our job as an implementer. We're not there to be your guru. We're there to teach you the EOS tools and facilitate the knowledge and wisdom that's already in that room and to be objective, to listen really well, ask really good questions, etc. So that's eventually where we get. Not everybody arrives at that point, but then I think they get frustrated and looking for an implementer who's going to say, yeah, I've done manufacturing and that's why I'll be your better implementer. In our community of EOS implementers, you're not going to find somebody who's going to say that. So the other thing, that's how I handle that. The other thing, I want to go back to a 2-person team with EOS. I'm a 1-person business and I run on EOS. My wife and I run our family on EOS and it just works. Now, it's built for teams of 10 or more. It just works better for those size teams. But man, those tools work. An accountability chart, even if there's only 2 people who can take those seats, the clarity, as you know, the clarity you get from designing that structure and putting all the roles inside of those seats and realizing, you take a step back and you realize, holy shit, we're sitting in all these seats doing all these things. And here are the ones we suck at. Let's put a big fat circle around this seat. We need to hire for that one first. So it works.
It does. And, just the clarity of putting, what happens so many times in any business is multiple people are responsible for the same thing. And the overlap of the multiple people creates the most problems, not pulling and putting a specific thing on one person's plate. And the quicker that you're able to do that, whether it's 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, when you can have the clarity of this person's responsible, you're accountable for this, no one else but you. The quicker you can do that, that's like, in my opinion, that's like step 1. Once you start completely making and holding someone accountable for a specific thing and nobody else is going to save you, then we see what you're made of. And if you can actually do your job, that's the clearest thing. That's the biggest problem that I always see is, too many people, there's too many cooks in the kitchen, they say, too many things. And that's just a lack of clearly identifying who's responsible for this and then holding them accountable. And that's kind of where they build up the rocks and the other things. So when you're doing that,
Preach it.
could you kind of go through, Harvey, and break down a little bit further into EOS? And I know I said rocks, but to kind of break down what all is involved once you kind of start up with that, with an EOS.
Yeah. So to your point, that, and beautifully said, you're a smart guy. And you have figured this out. I know you're educated too. You read a lot and you pay attention. If more than one person is accountable, then nobody is accountable. And if you have a partner, which I did in my real estate business, often you think, oh, we're both owners, we're 50-50 owners. That means we're both responsible and equally accountable for these things. And if 2 people are accountable, then nobody is accountable. So you don't think that it makes sense for a 50-50 partners to identify seats and roles and what they're accountable for and split them and separate them. But until you do that, you'll just step on each other's toes and or point fingers and wait for the other person to take care of something. And then guess what that builds? Resentment.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there. Okay. So your question is, what does the EOS implementation process look like?
Yeah, so okay, so let's say we get through a 90-minute and you get in. So someone who is not really aware, what are some of the other things that are involved? I know EOS breaks down into a certain amount of periods, for somebody to look at how you're judging yourself, and then you set periodic goals. Could you kind of break it down a little further for someone just if they're on the cusp of hearing about this for the first time?
Yeah. All right. So in the 90-minute meeting, the whole thing is structured around the EOS model. And if you Google the EOS model, you'll see this circle come up, and it has the 6 key components of your business. Of your business and any business, you all have 6 key components. What we found is that entrepreneurial leaders like you, like me, like the people listening to this, they tend to wrestle with 136 issues at the same time. That probably sounds familiar.
Yeah.
We've also found that to the extent that you can strengthen the 6 key components of your business is the extent that those 136 issues, they just kind of fall into place because they're all symptoms of a true root cause, and that root cause being weakness in one or multiple of the 6 key components of your business. So what are the 6 key components of your business? The vision component. This is just getting everybody on the same page with where you're going and how you plan to get there. The people component, because you cannot accomplish a great vision without great people. Name me somebody who did great things in history and did it alone. Okay. Great visions take great people. Great people, of course, is a word and a term that gets thrown around. So we define what that looks like for your unique organization. So we have the vision component, the people component. The third component is the data component. Strengthening that component is about getting to a point where we're making decisions as entrepreneurial leaders based on real facts and figures, objective information, instead of the subjective information, emotions, and ego that we often make decisions through as entrepreneurial leaders. As the vision, people, and data components get stronger, you're going to get more clarity. Transparency is going to go up. And so you're going to start to see some things that you didn't know were there, and or see things more clearly that you thought were there, but you weren't sure about. So the fourth key component is the issues component, and strengthening that component is about smoking out all the issues in your business, all the problems, obstacles, and even opportunities, identifying them at the root, hitting the nerve on them, solving it there, and making them go away forever for the long-term greater good of your company. Okay, so that was vision, people, data, and issues component. The fifth key component is the process component. And the process component is about getting the most important work in your business done the right and best way every single time. There's probably 100 entrepreneurs that just heard that and said, oh man, that would be nice. All the most important work in your business done the right way and the best way every single time. Sign me up. As you imagine, this is what makes your business more profitable, more scalable. It makes it easier to manage, and it makes it more fun because we all know what it feels like to have to repeat ourselves, to go back into something, some project, for instance, and deal with an issue that was just somebody not paying attention or over an oversight on something basic that you said before, and it's a waste of time. It's super inefficient, and it makes you lose sleep. So the business that has a strength in the process component is easier to manage and ultimately makes it more fun. It always reminds me of this quote that I love, and it's systemize the predictable so that you can humanize the unpredictable. And that's what we like to do as humans, as creative beings, is use our gifts and abilities to solve the complex problems or or capitalize on the next opportunity. Not go back into a project and have to deal with some bullcrap that somebody missed and there was oversight on. That's so simple, and we've said 100 times. That's what makes business frustrating. Okay, so that's the process component. And then finally, the traction component. And if you look at the model, the traction component is at the bottom, directly underneath the vision component, because the traction component is about bringing that vision down to the ground so that you can actually get progress towards it, which is the whole, I mean, that's what we want with people with vision and ideas. We want progress towards those. And it's there at the bottom underneath the vision component because vision without traction is hallucination. That's all that is. Vision without traction is just hallucination. And that's funny, kind of, but it's also sad because we know people and or we are people who have big, audacious visions and dreams for the things we want to accomplish in the world. And they often go unaccomplished because of weakness in the traction component. So those are the 6 key components. And there are specific tools and disciplines inside of each one that we use to strengthen each component. And in the 90-minute meeting, to give a very clear picture of what 100% strong looks like at the end of this journey that I take with all my clients.
That's awesome. And as I stated here initially, so yeah, as Harvey just broke that down, it sounds really simple when he gives us those 6 key components. So I mean, really, Harvey just breaks it down and talks this through like, yes, this is a simple thing. But I, for one, we're about to enter our 8th quarter of EOS. So, we are 2 years all in, and it is very difficult, but you see so many great things that come from this. My business has definitely been able to grow and thrive within this. So many things have been clarified. And the biggest challenge and what this COO and what Harvey is talking about when he comes in and helps, I mean, the biggest thing that you really have to get it once you've been around for a while, and as a business owner that was stuck in this position for a long time, you're working in your business, which doesn't allow you to work on your business. So getting these processes documented some way, shape, or form is really allows you to start delegating things out and gives people positions that you then see are useful. And then the other people working below you can start to get some processes, and those simplified, repeatable, systemized, predictable tasks, like Harvey brought up, very simply speaking, once you can start to document those things, identify them and document them, that's where you start to relinquish, and that's where you start to be able to grow. And so, Harvey simply walking through this process, but I'm telling you, this is like life altering for a business owner if you're able to start to put some of this in place. So many business owners stay stuck in that limiting mindset, limiting belief, and that they're the only one that can do whatever the heck that they're doing. It's so untrue, right? And so, Harvey, do you encounter that a lot when you're talking to business owners?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like I said earlier, in that initial phone call and then in the 90-minute meeting, I'm getting a feel for how open-minded that business owner is, how growth-oriented they are. And it's one thing to be growth-minded and to say you're growth-minded. It's another thing to create an accountability chart, realize that you're sitting in 3 or 4 seats, and then have to take the steps necessary to let go of work, let go of accountable roles, and delegate them to somebody else, and then let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Get
yeah,
out of
that
the way.
that one of the biggest problems that all EOS implementers run into, together with the leadership teams that they're collaborating with and working with, is a CEO owner not letting go, being unwilling to let go. And the reality is that we know it's hard, it's difficult, and it's scary. But it's difficult and it's scary, and the EOS tools are designed to create a safety net for you. That's why we create them, so that it becomes easier to let go. And to your point, that you've made a couple times, it sounds simple, and it is. These are all simple tools. They're all timeless concepts. These are things that have been around for 100 years, are going to be around for 1,000 more. But there's a very stark difference between simple and easy. It is not easy work. It is the tools are simple, but it's not easy work. And at the end of this 90 minutes that I spend with teams, one of the last things that I say is, this is not a seminar, and this is not an opportunity to just dabble in, a la carte tools and just see kind of what happens, especially if we're working together with me. If you're working with me, this is a fundamental change to the way you're doing business. It will be difficult. It requires commitment and discipline. Do you have what it takes? And if the answer is, I don't know, or I don't think so, or no, then maybe there isn't a fit there.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, and the reason, that I asked Harvey to come on and talk about this is I've met multiple EOS implementers. So I look at and I size up these implementers and I listen to what they say. And a lot of them, just like with anything, people talk a lot, but I see the passion with Harvey, and sometimes I don't see that with other people I've spoken to. Now that's just me, right? So I see that in Harvey. So I see that in people. There's just what I see in people, and everybody is going to have their own opinion. And Harvey would love to meet with many business owners, but either there's a fit or there's not a fit, right? I mean, so I have a certain amount. I mean, I feel like I'm extremely passionate about my career, my job, what I do. I feel like Harvey's extremely passionate about what he does. And when you find that, it's addictive. So you want to, keep those type of people around you. And so, it doesn't matter what industry, like he says he's in, and it's something to, consider if you're in business to get with someone like Harvey. It doesn't have to be Harvey. I just specifically am drawn to Harvey because I can see his passion for what he does. But I think
Yeah.
that, it's important for anybody who has a business to at least, reach out. EOS has a nationwide network you can reach out to on their website, and, at least reach out and let someone give you that 90-minute introduction into EOS. It could be life altering for your company and your employees, and, where you're helping your employees get in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Go to eosworldwide.com. There's an option in there to find an implementer that's near you. At the very least, pick up Traction by Gino Wickman and look through it. I wouldn't recommend listening to that book because it reads like a textbook. You'll lose a lot just by audiobook version or an audiobook reading of that. And if you know you're a visionary, if what we've already said today is like, yep, you're hearing that and you say, yep, I'm a visionary, don't read Traction. Go get Rocket Fuel and read that instead. You'll learn about the tools. It's much shorter. It's written for you. And you'll find that to be a much easier read. But yeah, just explore it. Go educate yourself on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Harvey. I appreciate you coming on and joining us today. And if people want to reach out to you to talk further about EOS or maybe see if they can do a 90-minute meeting with you, what's the best way to reach out with you?
Yeah, they can email me at harvey.yergin. That's YERGIN at eosworldwide.com.
Awesome. Harvey, thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. And thank you so much for explaining EOS to the viewers. And please reach out to Harvey. I definitely, would vouch for him, recommend him. He is a fantastic contact for anybody in any business. So please reach out to him, give him a call, and give him a shot to, discuss EOS with you. Thanks so much, Harvey.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate that.
Have a great day.
You too.